Today's topic is a very, very important one, and especially important if you are in the process of getting licensed or you're just licensed and you're looking for a place to call home in the world of insurance. And that's the topic of the insurance MLM Kool-Aid drinking schemes that are basically permeating everything about the insurance business. What I'm going to spend some time here doing today, how long? I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes. We'll kind of see how it goes. And I'll open this up to your questions as we go along the way. You can just throw your questions in the chat, or you're welcome to raise your hand. I'm going to be going over the telltale signs of what an insurance MLM looks like, the actions and behaviors it has, in order for you to identify as quickly as possible if you're involved or thinking about getting involved with an insurance MLM, and will want to run the other way as quickly as possible. A couple of things I want to mention before we get started. First of all, we are watching or participating in this live on the Insurance Sales Success free training site. We've got a bunch of scripts, my books in the insurance space for free available, as well as lots of very detailed courses on final expense, Medicare, annuities, and ACA. If you're out there watching a recording of this on YouTube, go to daviddufour.com/ISS to learn more. And of course, if you're watching this and interested in finding a home, daviddufour.com for more information on how we help people who are new to the business or experienced become top producers, and in the specifically final expense space, face-to-face or telesales. So let's first start off with, I think, a primer here, because I think it's important to understand, what the problem of an insurance MLM is. The problem that I have with an insurance MLM, and I guess it'd be useful to define what that means. I look at what I would define as an insurance MLM is an organization that's committed to something more along the lines of what you would think of as an Amway, an Herbalife, Beachbody, fill in the gap on an MLM, when it comes to the recruiting and the training of agents, something other than what you would consider to be training agents to sell. And that mentality really permeates tremendously, especially in the life insurance business, less so in ACA, health insurance, Medicare, and annuities, but it's a big, big deal in the life insurance space. And the reason it's a big deal is because, in part, it contributes, in my opinion, the behaviors that these MLMs follow contribute in large part to the failure of agents who come in who think they've got a great setup, but lo and behold, they don't see the writing on the wall, as we'll demonstrate here shortly. And they're really starting at a disadvantage. Lots of different ways that you can start at a disadvantage promulgated by the MLM. But here's the issue. Insurance sales is tough. It's not easy. It's simple, but it certainly isn't easy. And it's difficult. And it's a performance-based activity where if you don't have all, and here's the thing, if you don't have all of the advantages in your favor, and we'll go over those to some extent later, you're giving yourself the lowest chances of success, or limiting yourself to the highest level of success that you can. And part of that equation is, which agency do you pick to join? It really matters a lot when you are doing as a new agent or experienced agent, to figure out if the agency you're joining truly aligns with what you want out of this business. First step of that is, of course, figuring out what you want out of the business. That's very important. And then the second of all is, once you kind of know what that is, then you kind of know what to avoid, what to look out for. So back to the MLM stuff, but that's the reason I'm doing this, is because a lot of agents, typically the life cycle of an agent is they come in, somebody's told them exactly what they want to hear. Hey, we're making money hand over fist. It's easy. I'm just talking to ma and pa, grandma and grandpa, and they just hand their money over, and I'm making more money than I ever did doing whatever. You should join too. And it appeals to, hey, this sounds like a great opportunity, which it is. But a lot is missing from that equation. And before you know it, the agents are involved. They're in a position where they're just not getting the best chances developed in them to be successful. And the crazy thing is that these MLMs will succeed even if you fail, which is an unusual concept. Like, what do you mean they have to fail? They can fail and still succeed. I'll explain that a little bit later too. The point is, if you have a desire to learn how to sell insurance successfully, okay, then the best thing you can do is to look at MLMs, know what to look for in them, so that you can avoid those organizations that'll say they're not an MLM, that'll say that they're legit, but in action, they're actually quite not a good choice to partner with. Okay, makes sense? Cool. So I've got down a list of different factors here that I think are the signs, the red flags, if you will, that you're dealing with an MLM, because it's not like the government makes agencies say, I'm an MLM agency. They don't do that. You have to think and figure this stuff out. All right. And so what I'm going to do here is try to empower you with some ideas or concepts, give you some examples. And then when you're out there looking at an organization, for some reason, I'm going to join the Ford Insurance Group, you at least know what you're looking at and kind of have a way to scorecard the organization to see if they fit the bill of being legit or more oriented towards the recruit anybody with the pulse MLM type of mentality. So, and again, none of these are in any particular order, but they all are very important and you need to be looking out for them. So number one on the list here is a cult-like leader. So think about, and you could really call most of these MLMs essentially capitalistic or cult capitalism, I guess you could say. They take all the elements of a cult, a religious cult, and engender it into the actual operation. And many times, as there are in cults, there is some sort of like Jim Jones leader that runs the organization that is essentially the soul or the pinnacle of the organization. And you will see the same exact things in many insurance MLMs. And it's there are big organizations that certainly have these leaders that are kind of larger in life, but what you'll see it a lot more magnified, I think, and where the leader is almost exalted above others and is kind of put on this pedestal. And that's a red flag, in my opinion. I can think of a couple of organizations, 3-letter organizations, where a lot of what you see constantly is talk about the leader of the organization. And, they're constantly in the center line of what it is that they're talking about in the company. We've seen this time and again. You look at Primerica, not so much Primerica, but before Primerica, there was A.L. Williams. Art was the centerpiece. He was the leader of the crusade, the driver for the pinnacle of the organization. And you'll see this if you think, I'm not going to try to name too many names. A lot of these organizations like to sue and cease and desist and who knows what else, even though there's the First Amendments that we have, they'd like to say otherwise. So I have to kind of, dance around the perimeter of it, but yeah. So a lot of these organizations will have somebody in charge kind of running things, and they're kind of a motivator. They're kind of this like larger than life personality. And it's not always that, just because there's a leader, it's a bad thing. All organizations have leaders, but you can kind of tell with their energy, if they're very high energy and they tell you things that are just kind of unusual. Like one person in particular, all of y'all would know if I'd mentioned his name. I've watched some of his content, and he says very, very regularly, this business is easy. Anybody can do it, which is exactly the opposite, because most people, by the statistics, show that you can't do it. 95% of people fail in the business in the first year. And he knows this, but he won't admit it because his vested interest is recruiting anybody with a pulse. So be on the lookout for what it is that the leaders, if there are leaders that are these cult-like figures, and observe what they talk about and how they talk. What do they speak about? Are they talking more about recruiting? Again, another example of another leader. They tell you in the recruiting space that if you're not recruiting right away, it's essentially immoral. You're doing the people a disservice by not informing them about their great MLM opportunity. And they equate it to something that's not like optional. You're being immoral, essentially. And you need to look for signs and things like that indicate that this is not just a normal leader of a company, but this is somebody who's high on their own supply, and they're going to suggest and tell you things that just don't sound right. But a lot of the times the cult-like leaders will embed truisms in it. Hey, you got to work hard. hey, this is a tough business, but anybody can do it. I mean, there's ways in which people who lead can lie, but make it sound like a half truth. So you just got to be very careful about that. Again, look for that. If you see that, it's not an immediate, like, not a legit company, but you need to be aware of then what do they say? How do they portray themselves? What is it that they talk about? What is of most concern to them? And that should give you indication what the value of the company's values are and where they want to go and how they're structured. I mentioned this earlier. Second point here is an emphasis on recruiting. So here's the thing, guys. All MLMs outside of the insurance industry, what do? You go in, you do an opportunity meeting, you talk about what it is that you're selling, your goop or your potion or powder. And part of that sales pitch is talking about the great opportunity that comes with representing and being a business rep to the company and an MLM person, to then go out and then recruit people and duplicate the process. The process of joining these organizations that are non-insurance embed right in the beginning, along with selling the goop and the product, the recruiting process to build more recruits and then build more recruits, et cetera, to build this idea of this like elaborate, deep pyramid of people. And that's how you achieve riches. It's not through the selling of the product and scaling the sale of the product. It's through the recruitment of people. That's what you're told from the top of the pyramid, essentially, people who run it. And that's the telltale signs of an MLM. There's more of a conversation about recruiting than there is about selling the product. And in the insurance business, it's the same principle that's put into force. In fact, many of the people that run a lot of these three-letter organizations you've all heard of originated from Amway, Herbalife 25 plus years ago. They came from the leadership positions in these companies, saw the insurance business was a huge opportunity to take the same kind of mentality and the hierarchical structure and the kind of stuff that MLMs do and then put it in the insurance business. And you'll see that originate from that, okay? And so for example, if you're a new agent and you're looking at an agency and they start talking to you, it's not something you ask, but it's something they present to you and they're super excited about. They start talking about recruiting and how part of being in the business model is to recruit people immediately so that you can get passive income or residual income, then teach them to do the same thing. And then you build this large downline. That is a sign you're in an MLM, where the value is not on selling the product, but the value is on recruiting. I mean, they'll tell you their upfront pitch. MLMs want to scale through the MLM model by recruiting people to recruit others to recruit. And they're going to tell you as much very early on in the sales or in the recruiting process, okay? If you hear this, again, my suggestion is to run, because what you're about to get into is a relationship where typically the emphasis on training is not put on teaching you how to sell insurance, whatever the product is, but instead teaching you how to recruit others to recruit, okay? And here's the thing. The way business is transacted, if you think about it, is by making a product sale, right? And if you're recruiting people to recruit, how are you going to make any money if you're not making sales? Further, why would you want to recruit anybody? Let's as a brand new agent, you don't know anything. Not to, be a jerk here, but why would you train with me if I just started Final Expense yesterday? I mean, come on, I got nothing to offer you because I don't know anything. I'm ignorant, right? And part of the ability to be successful in the business is to convey experiences, to convey real life experiences in the field or on the phone, selling, to convey the message of the training in a way that's experiential. You don't get that when you're brand new. You really can't and don't, in my opinion, have the right to train people when you have no experience yourself. And you're doing not only yourself a disservice, you're doing the agents a disservice. And the fact is, if you don't know squat, the people you're recruiting who have a brain will see right through the veneer and be like, I'm not working for this guy. He doesn't know anything. I'm going to give him all this money in overrides. What's he giving me? He doesn't even understand the product or how to take care of, a starting new agent. So I see from very many standpoints why I think MLM as a new agent or just flat out recruiting is a bad idea, which is why I stand against the MLM model. Because what it is essentially is a race to the bottom. It's about getting as many people as possible to be recruited, some of them to make sales, and that's the spaghetti against the wall methodology. Some will stick, some won't, so what? And then you really don't benefit because you got to babysit a lot of people and you don't know anything about it, but it's the people at the top who are making significant money, not just in the product sale, but also in selling other stuff like junk leads, memberships, et cetera, that thrive because of the work that you do, but you bake very little on. So not that recruiting's bad. It's obviously what I do. I mean, I'm always on here talking about agents should join the Ford Insurance Group. They should apply if they care about mentorship, et cetera. But that is because I actually sold insurance for a couple of years. I had success. I had failure. I have experience, so I feel confident sitting down with an agent and helping them get through the process, at least in final expense, face-to-face or telesales, because I've been there, done that, right? And I did that from 2011, 2017. So when people work with me, they know I'm not just some crook who's telling them what they want to hear and doesn't have the firsthand experience actually selling this stuff. So that's my advice. Not to say that recruiting's bad, but it comes with time. It comes with, I believe, having a groundwork of experience so that when the time does come, if you want to recruit, you can do it from the standpoint of experience. You have something to convey to these people, and you yourself are of more value. You're going to be able to help that agent, probably help them succeed better now that you've done it firsthand for a while. And you're going to keep more of the people you recruit. A good 6 to 12 months to me is kind of what I would suggest if you're interested in recruiting, as far as getting firsthand experience selling first, and then getting into recruiting after you've developed that is kind of what I would suggest. So in short, if the recruiting aspect of the business is presented right up front and is made out to be like the super cool thing that you should do immediately, you're in an MLM, you're likely not going to get the same level of support, training, mentorship, development to help you sell well. And you're kind of fodder for the cannon that the MLM is. So you want to avoid. Moving on, appeal to blue sky. So what do I mean by that? So the one thing you got to remember about MLMs is they're run by the best of the best salespeople. They understand how to weave a narrative, a story. They understand how to inspire people at scale, and they understand how to move the masses, okay? You don't run an MLM without being an exceptionally good pitchman, salesperson, and really just a master at applied psychology, okay? Meaning like you know how to manipulate people and you know the process of what you're doing and how to get people to do what you want, even if it's not necessarily best for them. So what appealing to blue sky means is that the concept of blue sky is like the sky is blue, everything's wonderful, everything's great. And that's how every single MLM is going to pitch its opportunity. You're going to hear, of course, one particular MLM cult leader always loves to show off his private jet. He's always in his jet, clinking wine glasses. This is the life. You're missing it. Come join my opportunity where I won't pay you anything and ask you to just have a bad run at the business. So you see that kind of stuff. I had one guy who joined my organization. This is years ago. And he was funny. He was in some multi-level marketing companies and, he suggested they were legit. Whether or not they were, I don't know. I've lost connection with them, but he went to this organization, and part of their recruiting process, because they were looking to scale into this from like solar or energy sales or something. And part of their recruitment process is they literally sat around a conference table, which, you could look out into the hangar and see the airplane. And they literally passed around the Rolexes and they passed around like stacks of cash. I'm not kidding you. And he was looking at it like, what the hell is this? It's like, let's talk business, not flash our stuff. And they do this, guys, because they want you to be so drunk on the just enormity of what the potential is that they're allowed to then do the little sleight of hand and behind the scenes do things that you wouldn't even think of asking, because the perception of what you're getting, this whole performance is so good that it's very difficult to see how they rip you off. Yeah, there's this euphoric, Alan Greenspan used to call it, what did he say? Rational exuberance, exactly. And you don't see this stuff, right? So what do I mean by this? Why is this bad? Because if they are going on about how wonderful your life is going to be, and this is almost like a quasi-spiritual experience, and they're talking about things in this big picture, quasi-spiritual, monetary, conspicuous consumerism, they're flossing, they're flexing, they're showing off their stuff. That is a telltale sign of an MLM. Okay. If they're showing off their stuff and they're doing that routine, it works. People fall for it all the time because everybody's like, well, geez, if that dude's got a plane or a Rolex or cash, it must be good. Right. And of course, the people who fall for that find out very soon, and usually it's not. So if you see that stuff, again, highly likely they're going to talk to you about recruiting, and they're going to talk to you about stuff in a way that isn't grounded in reality. So like, for example, the way I recruit, I don't floss. Like, I don't flex. I don't show my stuff because I think it's like shoddy, and I think it's lowbrow to kind of flex like that. I try to appeal to people by showing them how I can help them first, right? So I'm like, hey, you want to sell insurance? I got all this free stuff for you. Check out my YouTube channel. Check out my insurance sales success channel. Don't even join me yet. Just see what I can do for free. And so my recruiting strategy is like, dude, Dave, if you can show me all this, wow, this stuff, and I can see how it works, and it actually is a skill set that I can learn, and I'm reading about the scripts, and I'm doing and attending this lecturing. If it's this good and it's free, what's going to be like when I join? So my mentality has always been like, focus on that first, because otherwise, you know, perhaps you could recruit more people with the flex your stuff methodology, but I think it's just so cheap, it's overplayed, and I don't think it attracts the right person anyway, to some extent. But and the other thing too, of course, is I constantly talk about how we're going to mentorship. We're going to do mentorship. We're going to coach you. We're going to develop you. We're going to help you sell insurance. And we're going to have all of that wrapped up into it, right? We're constantly talking about insurance sales, not insurance agent recruiting. And I turn people away that want to recruit. So I don't want that. It creates a bad culture. We want an agency of salespeople who maybe one day get into recruiting, but it's because they've got street cred, right? So long story short, be aware of people flexing, you know, showing off their stuff. They're only doing that because it gets attention, it gets clicks, and people fall for it. But you shouldn't, because it's likely behind that veneer, it's an MLM. They take advantage of people who want so badly to be successful, right? Absolutely, they do. And it works. I mean, it works. What can I say? You know, but as far as getting attention, but not all attention is good attention, right? Cool. All right, let's keep going. You're the target of monetization. Boy, I've been waiting to get to this. You remember how I talked earlier about how MLMs, despite 95% plus of the recruits failing, they can still be enormously profitable. I mean, think about it. How can a company win when so many lose, right? Well, here's what happens. And I learned this from Always Marco. I had a conversation with him. We didn't do a live stream or anything, but we were talking about MLMs, and he brought up a really good point. You know, a lot of these MLMs, and he goes for the jugular on the MLMs out there. You can check out his YouTube channel, but they're all designed to fail. And so many people, basically everybody who joins an MLM outside of insurance, I don't know what the stats are in insurance, probably similar, fail. But these companies thrive and they make millions of dollars. Why is that? Because you as the agent, in our case, in insurance, don't have to sell anything in order for an MLM to be successful. And what you're thinking is, why is that the case? Don't they make some part of the commission when I make a sale? Well, true. But the MLMs that have their act together, that have no moral qualms about this, but understand the mentality, is they want to win no matter what, even if that means decreasing your chances of success. So here's some things that MLMs do to do that. And again, if you think about this, if you're looking at MLMs and are thinking about joining one or in one, if you think about this, you'll see what I'm talking about very quickly, how these companies can make money and be successful without ever you selling a single thing. The most common way that an insurance MLM is going to make money is by suggesting strongly that you buy their secret sauce leads. That is the big shtick, the big game they play. There is a 3-letter MLM right now that has leads they retail to their agents for $10 to $11. They claim that they're the greatest thing ever. You need to spend about $1,000 to $2,000 a week, called them to death, set some appointments, and close some sales. What the reality is I've heard from many of agents that have come to me and talked privately, because they won't vent this stuff publicly because they'll get targeted for lawfare, is that these leads aren't fresh. They're old leads generated months, if not years ago. They've been sold multiple times. Okay. They're not there. The half the people they talk to said, I just bought something yesterday or last month or last year, or stop calling me. I've had XYZ company call me a million times. Stop. And the truth is, these aren't even leads. These are data. These are like names in a phone book. If you're older than 30, you'll know what a phone book is. And that's the equivalent of it. It's just names, not leads, not people who are qualified, went through a process. The marginal level of like a glorified cold call that they originate at 10, 20 cents a name, but then they retail for $10 or $11. And I see where I'm going with this. Think about it. I'm running a company. I have thousands of agents. I have a lead. I paid a lead 25 cents for. I'm selling it for 11 bucks. My profit on that for the first time it sold is $10.75. It's easy to, shoot a digital lead to somebody. I don't have to like mail it, and there's no cost to that, right? Then I sell it another 2 or 3 times. So for one time purchase of 25 cents, I'm making $40. Now that may not sound like a lot of money to you, but what if they do this 1,000 times a day? Think about it. And it's usually a hell of a lot more than that, by the way. 1,000 times 40 is 400,000. The acquisition cost for that was 4,000, 2,500, hundreds of thousands of dollars a week with this strategy. So even if you don't make a sale, you're buying their crap leads that really aren't leads, but you're convinced that they are because you just trust these people. Why would they try to screw you? And they're making hand over fist multi-millions of dollars every single month. That's how they make money, even if you don't sell any of those people. Okay. So they win. And so that's why see where it's all coming together. Why would they recruit everybody if so many people? Well, that's why. They want as many people as possible to buy into these leads because they make so much money off of it. And they'll repeat, rinse, recycle again and again and again until it's just, till they find the next sucker that comes in. And this has been going on for a long time. Sometimes it is a process of they originated a lead for pennies on the dollar. Other times they sent a lead off 5, 6, 7 years ago. They paid an average cost for like $25 for it, but they've resold it 5 to 10 times. And they may have made at this point several $100s out of that lead, right? So they resell these aged leads over and over again. And again, part of their process to brainwash you into thinking that this is okay is I say, hey, look, a lead is a lead is a lead. But what you may not know is behind the scenes, the leaders of the company, not just the top of the food chain, but the leaders are getting kicked back a percentage of the profits for encouraging people to buy these leads. So they're all in on this process of getting you to buy something that's garbage. And look, some people make sales off this stuff. I'm not saying they don't. But what I'm saying is the reality behind this stuff is extreme price gouging to the point of ridiculousness. And most people lose because they're the least quality leads available. And whether you win or lose, the company wins bigly, tremendously. And that is the essence of what an MLM does. Is it's not in this like what we do at DeFord Insurance Group. The only way I win as an agency is when you make a sale. I don't make any money whatsoever until you make a sale. Now, why is that important? Because my incentive as an agency owner is to teach you how to sell, because I ain't making nothing till you get out in the field or on the phone and start closing, right? But don't you want that kind of incentive behind you? Why would you want the company that just wants to flush a bunch of leads at you to make money like that? Because their incentives just not where it should be. Yeah, I know, for real, Marie. Yeah, it is. It's nasty. I'm surprised that you haven't seen as much of this. And this is just one example. There are other companies, people, YouTubers that have multi-million subscriber channels. Think about it. You all know who I'm talking about. They charge joining fees. You know, they charge $100, $250 just to join. And these are brand name companies with a lot of people that join them. There's other things that they do too. I'm kind of at a loss here, but the main thing is the leads. And my point is, as an agent, what you should be thinking is, how do I, if I'm looking at an agency, do I only win when they win? Do I only make a sale? Or when I make a sale, is that the only way they're going to make money? If you're not, I would highly question whether or not you should join that agency, especially if they're reselling junk leads. That's the most scandalous. But otherwise, me personally, I am only interested as an agent. I want to have an alignment with goals as an agency owner and have the same one as the agent. I could do the same processes as an agency as what's being discussed here. But I just always think it's kind of immoral. You know, it's like, if I'm selling like complete now, maybe if they sold it for like $2 or $3, okay, that's fine. But to sell it at such a price gouge and not be honest with the origination and what you're going to expect, it's greed personified, right? And if you're going to join an agency like that, and again, you don't know it until you see it, you know, what else is wrong, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. Nicole says, unfortunately, I know more about these stinking companies when I thought I wanted to, or thought, sorry, this, or wanted to. Yeah, exactly. Yep. This is what happened to me. Yeah, Josiah, it happens to most everybody in this business, because they're the ones with the scale. They're the ones with the ability to get everybody's attention. Like I said, they're run by the best of the best salespeople who understand how to influence mass people. And it's just unfortunate because of that. Now, okay, moving on. This is something I picked up. I was watching Dan Pena. You guys know I'm talking about. He's the old guy who curses every other word. Mr. the $1 trillion man, I think is what he's upgraded himself to. I was watching some of his content, and interestingly enough, he mentioned W. Clement Stone. W. Clement Stone owned Combined Insurance. They're still around, but likewise, early on, they're very, very successful. Interesting story. He lived like he was over 100 years old, but essentially ran an organization very similar to kind of what we're describing. And he said, Dan allegedly said that he talked to Clement, and he said he needed a new gimmick in order to get people motivated to join his company. And this is a fine line thing here, because again, a lot of this stuff is like, it's not that it's bad. There's nothing wrong with having nice stuff. Don't get me wrong, you know, like talk, but you know, it's like how they use it is the problem, right? And this is another example. What Dan allegedly said is that Clement bought into self-development as kind of the vehicle to motivate, recruit people, and join his company. And he said or proposed that, you know, self-development was something you could never fully master. And it's something you can never like get to the pinnacle or achieve the top of. And the point of him mentioning that was that being a part of this organization, there's always something more to strive for. There's always something you're lacking. There always is something less about you than what you could be. And that by utilizing the venue of the insurance company, and you're a part of being in that, you're more likely to be involved in that because you've connected your work with your kind of idealism of what it is that you're striving to be. And you see this a lot. A lot of these institutions, they'll evoke religion, God. I've seen it time and again. People who are nasty behind the scenes, and they just do terrible things, but they're up there, innocent as a dove, talking about their, belief and their religion. I've always been skeptical of that because they use that as a cudgel. It's a way to try to talk to people in an endearing way, but not be necessarily responsible for your actions. So be very wary when you see the self-development stuff along the way with joining an organization. Not that it's a bad, self-development's fine, but it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just many times used as kind of a monkey wrench to get people in, to keep people going, and to turn the business or your work into something more spiritual. And many times that stuff is used against you and to keep you in as opposed to leaving. Another thing, I got a couple more here, and then we're going to open this up to questions. Two minor things. Binary thinking. Used to see this a lot. There was one particular company owner who said, whole life is trash value. The only thing you can buy is term insurance. Everything else is complete trash and garbage. Like there's this binary thinking of it's either good or it's evil, right? As opposed to the reality is life is gray. Nobody is truly good and very few people are truly evil. There's a lot of stuff in between. And the more you have life experiences, the more you realize that. And the more leniency and patience you have with people. But a lot of these organizations, it's all about this is the right way to do things, this is the wrong way to do things. It's good versus evil is kind of the mentality, is the way to think about this. It's very easy to communicate that way, but the reality is that they ultimately serves themselves. For example, this one company, term is great, whole life is trash value, whole life it's garbage. They did that because they wanted to indoctrinate people into looking at the other options out there like they're evil. And now they may not be good in certain circumstances, but the way people took it is that's an evil form or a bad form across the board of an insurance policy, and they're out to rip off innocent people. And this isn't a morality test here. This is insurance. The truth is insurance is it depends on the client. Like for example, what we sell is final expense at the Ford Insurance Group. In most cases, it's the best option. You may run into somebody who's 40, they're in decent shape, and if you sold them final expense, it's better than nothing. But there's better options. Maybe they would have been better with a non-medical policy that's less expensive, more coverage, or maybe even a term insurance. It all comes down to diagnosing what the client's problems are and then prescribing a solution that's best fit, as opposed to saying that's always bad all the time. That's stinking thinking, as that particular person who ran that organization said. So be careful of the binary thinking. If you hear that like this is good and the rest is bad, that's simplistic thinking. It's trying to appeal to their narrow way of how things operate in order to keep you on the pathway of what they want, which is essentially to recruit. And then the last thing, a little minor note, I was thinking of other things. Last thing is they have their own language. Sometimes you'll hear, again, many cults have their own languages, their own words to describe things, their own way of talking. This is something you have to observe. A group of people who are in one of these organizations talking together, you'll kind of hear these things that are kind of irregular to normal conversation and talking points. They may be using words that you're unfamiliar with or lingo that you're unfamiliar with. This is a way to kind of segment the inner circle in from everybody else. It's a way to try to attract you in. It's a way to keep people into it. Again, kind of very cult-like. You'll see that a lot in cults, certainly in MLMs too. So in short, MLMs, if there's a cult-like leader, run away, especially if they use the binary thinking. This is bad, this is evil, this is good. And especially if they talk about things that are not connected with the reality you're in, which is selling insurance. If you see an agency that emphasizes recruiting you're likely dealing with an MLM. And unless you really believe in the MLM model, don't involve yourself with it. Just find an organization that doesn't care about MLM. If you see a lot of talk about Rolexes, Rolls Royces, airplanes, big houses, mansions, and they show you that, but they don't show you their systems and how to help you achieve and duplicate it. And they're talking about the big picture versus how can we help you become successful. They're appealing to your sense of desire and are manipulating you. That's likely an MLM you're about to join. If you're joining an organization that, and it's hard to say, if they have an internal lead program, many times, not always, but many times that's an MLM. That is a profit center for them that they many times abuse to your detriment, selling you garbage so they can make millions upon millions of dollars, sometimes weekly, whether you win or not. Be very aware that we don't do that. By the way, we refer agents to trusted vendors that we don't get financially incentivized to push. Because again, our ultimate goal is to make money when you make money. That's because that's the only way to make money for us. So we want you to buy the best leads that get the best results when you go out and sell somebody, right? Because we're not getting paid until that happens. Self-development, be wary of the self-development gimmick. Again, part of being in sales, you got to self-develop to some extent, but sometimes it's used against you. Again, the binary thinking, it's either good or it's evil. There's no gray, there's no in between, just simplistic thinking designed to keep you boxed in. And then last, if they have their own language to various extents, there's going to be industry lingo, of course, but sometimes if they just have their own kind of way of doing things, language wise, probably a cult. MLM, interchangeable as far as I'm concerned.